Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to B-Ball Breakdown. We have exciting and breaking news, and we have Couper Moorehead of NBA.com and Eric Pincus of the Lakers, LA Times, and Hoops World to talk about Alvin Gentry of the Phoenix Suns has just been fired, and I'm not so sure it's a shocker to anybody, but certainly the timing is interesting. Couper, what do you have on that so far?
You know, I don't know a lot about the intricacies of the Suns organization, and Actually, even if I did, I wouldn't comment on it since I work for the Heat. But just in terms of, Gentry didn't really have a lot to work with that roster, and I'm not him, but I don't imagine he's all that upset about it. I'm sure there will be opportunities for him in the future. You never want to lose a job, but that could not have been a very easy day-to-day for him, especially when your team, you lose Steve Nash and you bring in a shot creator to replace him, like Michael Beasley. He just didn't have a lot of options. I don't know if I've been a huge fan of his, but I've never really minded him at all. And he'll find a job somewhere else.
Eric, what's your take on why he got fired and what's happening there?
Well, Alvin wasn't coming back. He was a lame duck coach. The team's going in a different direction. I thought he rejuvenated his career as a coach there because remember he was the Clipper coach. That fizzled out, and he became a long-time assistant around the league. I know he was with Phoenix for a while with D'Antoni. He took over that team, and he got them to the Western Conference Finals with Nash and Amari Stoudemire in that last year. And I think what Gentry is, I think he's a good people person. I think that for the most part, obviously not this roster, but the team likes playing for him. He relates to his players well. He's a good guy to be around. And he mostly runs the D'Antoni philosophy of high-speed game and getting shots up quick and getting to your offense quick. But this team was mashed together in the offseason. They did their best with their spending power, and I think I like Goran Dragic. I like the Luis Scola pickup, although he's older. Obviously, Beasley didn't work out so far. It doesn't look good. Wesley Johnson hasn't done much. They just don't have a lot of talent, and it's a rebuilding process. And when you're the rebuilding coach, it's a brutal job. And typically, when you get through the rebuilding process, then they go and hire someone else. When you get talent, finally, it's a tough one. So Gentry's a good guy. As Couper said, I'm sure he'll end up in a good position somewhere else. Who knows? If D'Antoni's along for Los Angeles, we could see Gentry back in Los Angeles as an assistant.
So just fill me in. When you say he was a lame duck coach, you knew he wasn't coming back. Was that like known? I don't think I had heard that.
In Phoenix circles and being around the team, yeah, it was. They're rebuilding. Everything that they did is done. It's open market to start something new, and to do so, it's just he's been there long enough. He's not someone that they intend to build around as far as Gentry, and obviously. The firing mid-season to me is only slightly surprising, but the team just lost to Milwaukee at home, and I think that hasn't happened in 25 years, and it's time. I don't know if Michael Beasley is going to be reached, and I thought Gentry would be a good coach for him, but it was like oil and water. They didn't see eye to eye, and you probably say that's more on Beasley than Gentry, but. They're going through a change. They might as well get started on the rebuild now. Maybe find if the interim coach, whoever they pick up, will be the guy for the future or whatever they end up doing.
Couper, do you have any insight into the Michael Beasley saga?
Fortunately, I didn't get to the Heat until after he left. I got here just a few weeks before LeBron, but certainly I've heard enough stories to know that he's, at his heart, he seems like he's not a bad guy. He just can be a little tough to deal with. But that's as far as I know about him. Certainly, his on-court game does not vibe with, I think, what most teams need these days.
Now, are there any rumors swirling around? Eric, you mentioned a little bit of maybe what they're going to look for. Any rumors about what coach might get in there and take over?
It's just brand new. Just went down. You go with an assistant in most cases because. It's rare when a good coach takes a job in the middle of the season on a lottery team. It's just you're going to lose a ton of games the rest of the way. Why would you want to take that position? So typically they get an assistant. I don't know which assistant. I'd have to look at their staff and see who their lead assistant is. that I don't have on the top of my head. But yeah, you just like same with the Nets with Carlissimo. It's just hard to replace somebody along the way, and really the D'Antoni thing was kind of an oddity. Obviously, the Lakers did it very early in the season, which is probably why they did it so quickly. But yeah, it takes some time to get a coach, even in a rebuilding situation. So I think whoever they get, unless the interim coach, whoever they put in, does a great job, I think that this is going to be an off-season topic. Who do they hire long term?
You know, Dan Marley is an assistant. He kind of jumps out at me as a guy who played for the Suns. He's got that young energy. He looks like a coach, and I've talked to a lot of assistants who tend to think that has to do with it. You have to look a certain way and have a certain role. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the nod. And you know what? If he can get them going and that rah-rah college attitude going, maybe he keeps that job.
I'll throw out also Elston Turner could be an option too. He's a sought-after assistant. So Elston or Dan, it would be my guess if they go after an assistant.
I was looking on Twitter just a few minutes before we started this, and I think Woj was tweeting about how some of the guys in the organization like Lindsey Hunter. That's another guy.
Lindsey Hunter as a head coach?
That's just from Twitter.
Wow. I thought you had to like be an assistant for at least a couple of years before you get to be a head coach, but who knows? Anyhow, let's move on to the playoffs. Let's look at the playoff picture, how it's shaping up as we move to the midpoint of the season. Let's shift to Eastern Conference. You know, what are we seeing there, and who's going to make a move? Who's not going to make it? What's your thoughts, Couper?
I still fully expect Boston to be Boston come the playoffs. I'm going to expect that until they prove me wrong, and so far in the last 5 or 6 years they haven't. I think they're going to end up with a low seed, but they're, you know, every year you hear about the team that nobody wants to play in the first round. They're pretty much going to be that team. I think their defense, Kevin Garnett is not going to let that defense die while he's there. You know, he'll go down with the ship as long as he has to. But the team I'm going to be watching pretty much from now for the next few months is Chicago and whatever happens with Derrick Rose. I like the Knicks. I think the Knicks have a good system for the roster they have, and they can get hot. Certainly they have enough shooters if their older guys are healthy that they can win a few series. But Chicago just has they have another level they can get to with Derrick with what their defense can do.
Eric, your thoughts?
Well, the Eastern Conference, there's the Heat, and then there's everybody else. And of course, Cooper's not going to brag about that, but that's the truth. The Bulls are the team to watch because we don't know what Derrick Rose is going to be. I don't think Ricky Rubio, who had a similar injury, is Ricky Rubio yet, and Rose isn't back yet. Let's say he comes back at All-Star. Is he going to be? If he comes back, let's say the end of February, is he going to be himself 1 month in at the end of March? I don't know. I don't think so because he's so good, so athletic. I think that he probably won't be himself until next year. And if the Bulls aren't that, then really the Knicks are the next best contender. Now, a dark horse as far as playoff race, and of course the Celtics are brutal. No one wants to face the Celtics. But the dark horse are Indiana Pacers. They play really well for the coach, for Vogel. I know Hibbert hasn't had a great year, but they're going to get Danny Granger back. I think Paul George is playing great. They play in the backcourt very tough defense. They are mean and physical. They really bother guards. And I don't know if they have this true star power to match up with the Heat. But if there's anybody that we can talk about other than the Bulls or the Knicks, I think it's the Pacers. I don't think the Nets are there. I think they're good but not great. I think the Hawks, same thing. Bucks maybe make the playoffs. Maybe the Sixers. That's about it. But I still think it's Miami's ball, and they're just better than everybody else right now in the East.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, interesting dichotomy between the Heat and the Bulls' defenses because they're both terrific, and the Heat do it on just sheer over-aggression and just kind of sheer out athleticism, whereas the Bulls do it in a much different sort of cerebral way, position and take away certain things, and maybe more of an intelligent way, if you can say that. And so I'm going to have to do a breakdown, I think, comparing that because it's subtle but equally effective both ways, and it's been fascinating. And I think that you're right. If Derrick Rose can come back and give them that juice, they pose a concern. The interesting question will be, who is going to be more important to the team coming back? Danny Granger to the Pacers or Derrick Rose to the Bulls? Obviously, you would think Derrick Rose is more important in a intrinsical sense, but it's possible that Danny Granger's presence on that Pacers team as they're playing well could actually make them a better team than the Bulls anyway.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty interesting point. And it's because I don't think Rose, as the centerpiece of the team and being what he's always been, is really feasible. Whereas Granger can come in and be a role player on that team. And just, I think Hibbert will be better if there's more of a threat outside from Danny Granger. And if Granger, obviously Granger needs to come back well, but Danny in his early days in his career, I thought was a very strong defender. And I think as he became a scorer, he put less energy into that. So if you can come back healthy and stay with their defensive concept, because I think that's what sets the Pacers apart, is really their on-the-ball defense, their toughness, and they rebound really well. I think they're one of the best rebounding teams, if not the best rebounding team in the league. And David West is not an MVP candidate, but he probably should be.
Wow. Those are big words for David West. Let's move on to the Western Conference, where Oklahoma City has a slight lead over the Clippers. Are the Clippers for real, guys?
Well, I'll take that since they're one of the teams I cover. And when we talk about coaches who came into the league without any experience on the bench, that's Vinny Del Negro. Jumped right into the head job at Chicago and then moved over to the Clippers. The Clippers are for real. They are playing without Chris Paul, whose MVP chances just got a little hurt because they're winning without him. They're doing just fine. They've won 3 in a row, and of course, I still think that between LeBron, Durant, and Paul, that CP3 should be right there. The Clippers have depth and athleticism, and I think they are easily their best team that they've ever had in franchise history. And I think they've shown over the last few games that they are more than just Chris Paul.
Couper, you agree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely think they're for real. I still have a tiny little bit of reservation about that bench unit, just almost solely because it has like metrics support them completely. I just don't know if that group of guys I have a mental block, I think, against them, using Ronny Turiaf as the lockdown 5 guy, and how hot the shooting has been and how many turnovers. I think their opponent turnover percentage for that unit is probably the highest in the last 10 years right now. It not that high that it couldn't, stay that way, but it's just there are a few extremes that might come down, but for the most part, the bench is not going to play as much during the playoffs, and we'll see what happens when they have to reconfigure their rotations a little bit, but I have complete trust in Chris Paul to work it out.
Yeah, certainly the rotations might end up being the most challenging thing that Vinny Del Negro has to deal with, since he doesn't really deal with offense, and what they do on offense is when what Chris Paul has to do to get them the shot down the stretch in some of those games is just Herculean. And I will say that, yeah, if they get that #1 seed, I think Chris Paul wins the MVP hands down anyway. Unless he goes on an extended trip where he's not playing a lot of games. But if he plays his, 65, 70 games and they win that first seed, I can't believe that narrative won't carry him through to the MVP. Who else should we be looking at in the Western Conference, Couper?
I'm watching Memphis right now very closely. I want to know what they do because a lot of people really like Rudy Gay. I'm not particularly one of them. I think the trade rumors with that team have sort of been passed off a little too easily as purely financially motivated, and I don't know if we're really thinking as much or as hard about it because they have a real chance to get much better by moving Gay just for someone who might not seem like a star but who just fits better with the team. I think Jared Dudley would be a great fit. He might not be enough on his own to be a return. But if you can get Dudley and then you find another shooter or a shot creator somewhere, that's all they really need is floor spacing and another guy who can create a shot. You take out one guy who the ball can kind of stick on, and you add guys that are willing to move the ball. They'll play D. They'll space the floor for the big guys. That might facilitate that November interior passing that you saw, that interplay between Gasol and Randolph. If that happens, I think they can probably shoot up back towards the top. I still don't know if they can beat either the Clippers or the Thunder, but they, more than anybody else, I think, have a chance with the move to get back up there.
Well, the team that always gets overlooked, of course, in the West is always the San Antonio Spurs. We haven't mentioned them, and they are always going to be who they are. They are an elite team. that doesn't get a lot of attention. I know Ginobili is out a little bit right now, I think with a hamstring injury. But they've got a really interesting combination of age and experience, and then they've got some young kids who have been there. Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard. So they're not just the old guys. And Tony Parker's still young. I mean, he's still playing fantastic basketball. They still play defense. They're still coached by Greg Popovich. So remember, this is a team that swept the Clippers last year. I know that so far the Clippers have pretty much owned San Antonio during the regular season, but playoffs is a different story. I'm curious to see if everything that we see in this regular season translates. I think the Thunder, with their athleticism, with their high-powered scoring, they play great defense. They play hard. I think Kevin Martin is not as perfect a fit as James Harden simply because they lost some of that pick and roll and their ability to just drive to the basket and get teams in foul trouble. But Kevin Martin is a great shooter. He's just stable, steady. You know what he's going to do. He's shooting really well from three. He can get to the line as well, just not like Harden can. So I still think the Thunder, and they benefited from Serge Ibaka, who's played fantastic offensively. They're right there. I think Clippers and Thunder are a notch above, and then the Spurs. And then, as Cooper said, the Grizzlies are a real wild card. And I don't think Gay and Zach Randolph are the perfect fit. I think both of them are kind of guys who, when they touch the ball, they want to shoot the ball quick. And I don't think it can be hard to have two guys like that. I think it works with Zach. I don't know if it works with Rudy.
Well, all interesting stuff, and certainly, definitely some wild card stuff happening on both sides of the country here. So it should be an interesting thing how we watch this shape up with the races and the matchups, and certainly as the trade deadline approaches, what is going to happen, whether or not Rudy Gay gets moved or anybody else. So, well, thanks for joining us, guys, for this great NBA chat, and don't forget, we got the Heat and the Lakers breakdown coming up real soon, featuring yours truly and our two esteemed guests. So don't forget, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, guys? You can answer that if you like.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, sir.